Dr. Dalal, I think we need to start.
Sure. So, good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum everyone, and good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to this inaugural webinar of the webinar series Food Security and Sustainable Development. This is a joint collaboration between HBKU, Hamad Bin Khalifa University, and the Islamic Organization. And we will start with this first webinar entitled Economic Diversification to Promote Food Security in the GCC. I would kindly ask all the participants to mute themselves to allow, a smooth conversation. In this webinar, we have the pleasure to welcome distinguished panelists from 3 different countries, from Qatar, from UAE, and from Oman. But before that, I would like to introduce myself and also give the floor to 2 distinguished speakers who will be proceeding with the opening speech for this inaugural webinar. My name is Dalal Aassouli. I'm an assistant professor of Islamic and Sustainable Finance. And I will be moderating today's session. I would kindly ask the participants again to mute themselves so that we cannot hear, as we are hearing some echo. And I would like to first invite Dr. Zulfiqar Ali, who is the Director of Program and Project Department at the Islamic Organization for Food Security, to deliver his keynote speech. Dr. Zulfiqar, the floor is yours.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Dr. Dalal. Dear distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this enlightening webinar on economic diversification to promote food security in the GCC. It is with immense pleasure that I extend my heartfelt greetings to each one of you on behalf of the Islamic Organization for Food Security. We embark on this journey of knowledge sharing in collaboration with Hamad Bin Khalifa University in Qatar by launching a series of webinars with a specific focus on food security and sustainable development. I trust that the discussions in the first webinar today will not only captivate your interest, but also provide valuable insights for your respective endeavors. First and foremost, I would like to express profound gratitude to Hamad Bin Khalifa University for their collaboration. A special appreciation goes out to our esteemed panelists from the UAE, Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, Hassad Food, Qatar, and Oman Food Investment Holding Nitaj. Their commitment and valuable contributions make this discussion possible. This webinar is a convergence of minds from diverse backgrounds, uniting to address food security challenges and explore innovative solutions. Our focus today is directed towards the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, where economic diversification takes a center stage in their long-term plans for sustainable growth. Visionary initiatives such as Saudi Arabia's strategy Vision 2030, Oman's Vision 2040, the UAE Vision 2021, Bahrain's Vision 2030, and Qatar's National Vision 2030 underscore the commitment to sustainable development, reducing reliance on oil revenues, and creating private sector job opportunities. As we navigate through the complexity of the key considerations, GCC countries grapple with water scarcity, arid climates, and limited arable land, posing vulnerabilities to global food supply chain disruptions. Number 2, import dependency, where a substantial reliance on food imports exposes the region to external factors and resilience against geopolitical tensions and market fluctuations. Number 3, government initiatives are admirable efforts by GCC governments include substantial investments in agricultural technology, research, and development. Collaborations with international partners aim to fortify a sustainable and secure food supply. The last one is the innovations in agriculture and diversification of food sources. We are embracing cutting-edge practices like vertical farming, hydroponics, and precision agriculture showcases the region's commitment to maximizing food production efficiency in challenging environmental conditions. Forward-thinking strategies involve investments in alternative production, aquaculture, and innovative approaches, ensuring a robust and diverse food supply. Today's discussions aims to eliminate the ongoing efforts, challenges, and innovations in GCC countries' pursuit of the food security. We eagerly anticipate gaining insights from our distinguished panelists, fostering a collaborative dialogue that transcends the boundaries and contributing to sustainable solutions for the region. IOFS is dedicated to implementing impactful activities that directly address the intricate challenges of food security. Our achievements stand as a testament to our commitment, ranging from pioneering research projects to fostering cross-border collaborations. We continue to evolve dynamically, shaping the global discourse on food security and building a legacy of impact, resilience, and prosperity for the communities we serve. Dear participants, our today's webinar, your unwavering attention is the cornerstone of this webinar success. Let's transform this virtual gathering into an inspiring and informative platform. Together, we chart a course towards a world that is more secure, resilient, and sustainable in terms of food. Your active participation today is not just appreciated, it is essential as we collectively shape a brighter future. Thank you, and let the journey of exploration and collaboration begin. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zulfiqar, for the very insightful opening speech. Now I move to Professor Jureidini, who is a professor of migration, human rights, and ethics at HBKU for the second opening speech.
Thank you very much. Mine is not so much a speech as to just welcome everybody, a warm welcome, and just to say we are really honored to be collaborating with the Islamic Organization for Food Security on this, which is the first in our webinar series entitled Food Security and Sustainable Development. We have great expectations. These webinars aim to foster high-level discussions between global stakeholders on food security and its implications on sustainable development. The webinar series is one of the outcomes of an ongoing project on food security that both myself and Dr. Dalal Aassouli have been working on. We are also partnering with a large research program based in Canada on food security, multi-country comparative studies on food security and migration. And that's also proving to be extremely informative and an opportunity for us to also to talk about Qatar specifically, as our particular focus is on Qatar, and exploring issues about crises, food security and crises, whether they are geopolitical or natural crises of one kind or another, which Qatar and other places, of course, around the world right now are facing. And I hope that we can address these issues. By bringing together global experts to discuss the emerging issues in this field, we hope to promote awareness and market education about global challenges and the best practices to achieve food security. We're planning to organize these webinars on a monthly basis, and we expect other educational outcomes will also be developed from the webinars, which will include podcasts, newsletters, as well as analytical research publications. I'd like to thank the Islamic Organization for Food Security for their collaboration and cooperation in this, and also our project funders, the Ministry of Municipality in Qatar and the Qatar National Research Fund for their support. I especially would like to thank Dr. Dalal for her tireless efforts in making all of this happen. She's put in a lot of hours. So Dr. Dalal will be moderating the session, and she will introduce our distinguished panel of speakers. So Dr. Dalal, over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ray, and pleasure having you with us and working with you on this project. We move now to the panel discussion. Before we start, I would just like to share with the participants some rules regarding the logistics of this webinar. So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat box, and we will try our best to address them during the webinar session. We will first start with our respective panelists. So this is a form of a round table whereby each panelist will be addressing of questions depending on the time of the session, and we'll try to allocate some time for the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. So please do post your questions. We do see them, and we'll try our best to address them. So in this panel session, I have the pleasure to welcome three distinguished panelists from three GCC countries. As you have seen, the title of the session is focused specifically on the GCC. To start with, we have Ms. Amal Hassan Al-Ahmadi, who is Head of Research and Development at the UAE Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. Ms. Amal is the Head of the Research and Development section at the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, where she also manages food security portfolio. She is a geneticist with the policy expertise with focus on food security, science, technology. She has dedicated in the last 7 years to working on the food security file in the UAE and has played a direct role in the development and implementation of the country's food security strategy. Ms. Amal has an extensive experience working on various strategic projects, including the UAE circular economy strategy, sustainable production and consumption, as well as the country's foreign aid policy. Her expertise extends to international cooperation, and she actively engages with stakeholders from both the public and private sectors. We're very pleased to have you with us, Ms. Amal, and we look forward to hear your insights on the developments of food security from the UAE. We also have the pleasure to have with us the engineer Hamad Bin, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Netaj Oman Food Investment Holding. Mr. Hamad has over 20 years of experience designing and implementing strategic transformation programs for a variety of sectors and companies, with proven record of leading cross-functional teams to develop and execute successful strategies that have resulted in significant growth and profitability, and then this is across various roles and expertise. Among them is leading role in the transformation program for Netaj. He worked previously also in other leading organizations such as the in Muscat and in other areas as well, in Oman, City projects, Aromatics Oman project, petroleum development. So very pleased to have you with us as well, Mr. Hamad. And then finally, we hope that Mr. Mubarak Rashid Al-Sahouti, who is the Vice President of Commercial Affairs at Hassad, will be able to join us. Mr. Mubarak also comes from a very rich experience, taking the lead on various strategic initiatives at Hassad Food, which is the investment arm, particularly looking at food security in the state of Qatar. He has been held in different positions, including the chairman of the board of directors of the Qatari Tunisian Company for Food Industries, member of the board of directors of the National Company for Food Processing, and then member of the board of directors of the Company for Agriculture Production. Welcome to the panel as well, Mr. Mubarak. To start, and very briefly, if we look at the global definition, actually, of food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Now, the population of the GCC is more than 56 million people and is estimated to reach 69 million by 2030, according to estimates by the United Nations Development Programme. With the GCC currently importing about 80 to 90% of its food requirements, and with the increasing population, this puts a lot of pressure on food imports as well as meeting self-sufficiency targets. We have seen also in the past few years that GCC nations have been investing massively into strengthening their self-sufficiency and achieving food security. And they have maintained access to essential food items due to the long-term food security measures implemented after the 2007-2008 food crisis. And we have seen countries like UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Oman adopting various strategies to strengthen their food security systems, which includes formulating national strategies to promote domestic production, diversifying their trade partners and sources of import, building strategic reserves, and also reducing waste when we talk about the environmental impact. To understand how economic, at the same time, GCC countries have been putting a lot of emphasis or strong emphasis on the value of economic diversification in their long-term plans for economic and sustainable growth. These plans include Saudi Arabia Long-Term Strategy 2025, Oman's Vision 2040, the UAE's Vision 2021, Bahrain's Vision 2030, and Qatar National Vision 2030. And all these visions and strategies are meant to advance sustainable development, decrease the reliance on oil revenues, and increase the creation of private sector jobs for citizens. To understand how economic diversification supports food security in the GCC, we will be addressing a few questions during this webinar series to better understand how these countries are actually designing their strategies and how are they implementing investment programs to support economic diversification and food security. So I will start with a general question addressed to the panel. And I will ask each of the panelists to share his perspectives on what is your realistic current assessment of today's GCC's food security? And I'll start with Ms. Amal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dalal, for your introduction. We highly appreciate your insight and for moderating this session with my esteemed colleagues here. The current situation of the food security in the GCC, we could say that it is stable. But with the continuous challenges in the global food system, we cannot say that it's really stable. We need to be agile about the food system that is continuously evolving, that is continuously facing new challenges. And for the region that depends mainly on imports for its food, it is quite the challenge for us in the GCC country. But we see that so far, alhamdulillah, we have been able to face all of these challenges, mainly because from the very beginning, we have established a very diverse multi-sectoral strategy to work on our food security, taking into consideration, all the challenges that this region of the world faces, from economic, from environmental, all the way to geopolitical issues as well. So I would say that we are stable, but we are always trying to work to better the food ecosystem in the GCC, simply because we are trying to always be agile because of the unexpected trends of the food systems.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amal. And of course, we will hear more from you about the leading initiatives. I think UAE is one of the first countries to have a dedicated ministry for food security, and it's very impressive. So And moving now to Mr. Hamad, if you want to add something, maybe from Oman's perspective.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dalal. I would like to echo Ms. Amal comment about the stability of the food security in the GCC. It has been very well tested recently with the COVID pandemic that happened a couple of years ago, followed by a major logistic disruption. The GCC food security has passed the test very well. We have seen the crowd pushing the shelf in every retail across the world. We haven't seen that kind of, issues and disruption here in the GCC. And that's demonstrated also by the various states in the GCC ranking in the food security index. We are, in general, the 6 countries well within the top 40 countries in the world when it comes to the food security. But that's not enough. I think there are some investment need to be done. Backward integration, it is a focus. As countries, we don't have competitive advantage when it comes to water. We have scarcity of water. A lot of cost inflated associated to the input to the agri production in our countries. So GCC countries has been actively in the last few years investing in countries where we can have a backward integration, a support towards making our countries well secured. And we need to balance between the self-sufficiency and the food security. Self-sufficiency where we need to grow, produce everything locally, but food security, we need to have a means of getting the food at any point of time. And that balance we should strike it very well. Oman, we are heading into that direction. There are direct deal we are making now with farmers in Australia to grow wheat. There are also a very advanced discussion with East Africa. So we need to keep improving our food security, and we need, locally speaking as well, to improve the associated infrastructure, the logistic network, cold chain, in order to make all areas of our countries well accessible, well reached when it comes to times of crisis. So I think we are in good shape, but we need to do more. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamad. I want to continue with you maybe on the next question, because I mentioned earlier that the GCC countries is to reduce the reliance on hydrocarbons and therefore to diversify their economies. And that is to consider, for example, other sectors like tourism, like education, and then we're talking also about food security. So how can actually economic diversification strategies also support food security? And what do you see as opportunities or challenges from your experience?
Well, the biggest challenge would be the availability and feasibility of the technology. You are right. This is a very good question, Dr. Dalal. How we strike the balance between diversifying our economy, meeting our food security target, and in the meantime, adhering to the global target for zero carbon. We are trying to focus on the research and development as one of the most important pillars in our strategy. Focusing into the circular economy. We have a number of initiatives we are working with now. For instance, a lot of farms in Oman now, they are moving into solar energy with the support of some of the leading oil and gas company in Oman. When it comes to the dairy production, when it comes to the meat production, we are trying to focus in the circular economy, trying to reuse the biofeed as a source of energy. We have a number of initiatives we are working with. In the meantime, there is a big focus now into an alternative energy when it comes to the green hydrogen. The GCC and Oman is one of them, is one of the good countries that can be suitable for this kind of energy. So we are trying to strike the balance, but in the meantime, we are watching out also for the latest technological advances, and we're trying to be ahead of the game when it comes to localizing those technology here in Oman and in GCC as total.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamad. I think these are very good points. Effectively, I think now the globally, everyone is focusing on COP28, and effectively, we're talking about economic diversification, but also sustainable transportation. It's challenging for some countries to align both. And I would like to hear more from Ms. Amal. I know you have been also, actively involved in the UAE circular economy strategy, but also, in various initiatives on food security. So if you can elaborate more as well on this challenge of aligning economic diversification and food security, but also looking into the resilience of the agricultural sector. And I think this is a very important area. And UAE next month is hosting the COP28. So if you can share with us some of these initiatives that you have put in place in UAE to address these challenges.
Absolutely. So to begin with, we need to understand UAE's vision when it comes to its economy. So when our leadership announced where we want to be, where our economy to be, the first thing they have done is to make everyone understand that we want to have a knowledge-based economy. So a knowledge-based economy that consists of everything, the positive and the negative, and how we can deal with the challenges that we will be facing. And of course, part of that is food security. And it's not just knowledge-based, it's moving beyond, especially for the GCC. We realize how important this is, and you've mentioned, we are moving beyond the oil era. So whether it's food security, whether it's tourism, agri-tourism, environmental tourism. So we are really moving toward the more sustainable, era of our economy. It doesn't mean that we do not use, the older parts of the economy. But then when it comes to food security, it's an integral part for us. And the way we have to deal with it must be innovative. And when we think about innovation, a lot of people think immediately about technologies, about AI, about the Internet of Things, but it really doesn't have to be that complex. Because at the end of the day, while you have those huge companies that can adopt, expensive AI, closed system agriculture, you still have the smallholder farmers. And in the GCC, we are well aware of our farmers, and we are very close to them, and we do appreciate their contribution to our food security. So when you go all the way to the smallholder farmers, you need to go and look up for simple innovation techniques that are environmentally and economically feasible. And this is very important because while some innovations could be environmentally feasible, economically, they might not make sense for the farmer, especially on the short term. And you need a little bit of, convincing for the farmers to adopt something that, would be good for them on the long term. So one of the things that we actually have done in the UAE, we have been evolving our incentive systems for the farmers. So in the GCC, we all have specific incentive systems. So what we have done, we have been changing some of the materials, for example, in the incentive program. So we are giving more incentives, for example, to farmers that are using more sustainable practices, to farmers that are adopting organic farming. So these are some of the simple things that we are doing. In addition to that, when it comes to R&D, we are continuously doing research, again, on economically and environmentally feasible innovations. And once this is done, we take it to the implementation phase, whether it's to begin with at the research center level, then at the farmer level to make sure that these data are accurate, and then we move to actually integrating these innovations into the incentive system. So, and I believe this is the way that the R&D that is heavily conducted in the GCC should be moving, in this pathway. So these are some of the simple, innovations or basically methodologies that we are following in the UAE when it comes to adopting to this new economy. But then we can also talk about how we're also supporting the high-tech farming system as well, which is, another story that we can discuss.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amal. Very good insights. And I would like to continue with you on a very specific initiative. Again, among our audience, there are also researchers in other countries who would like to know what's happening in the region here. So UAE MCCE recently partnered with, for example, Emirates Development Bank to manage projects that aim to advance the process of economic diversification and sustainable development in the UAE, and achieve the shared vision of both parties in promoting the building of a self-sufficient national economy. And we understand that the partnership also extends to support national food security and local food production. There are also solutions, of course, to modern agriculture SMEs and startup, which is usually one of the underprivileged segments and usually not really addressed through, let's say, the traditional banking system or, the traditional financing channels. How is this project contributing to the economic diversification initiatives in the UAE in the context of food security?
So this is a really integral part. 2 weeks ago, at the government meetings, so where all the ministers and the leaderships and highly level leadership meet to discuss key project, we have announced a couple of projects. One of them is several economic clusters. One of them is a food economic cluster in the UAE. This is simply one way to emphasize how keen we are to establish ourselves as a global food innovation, agri-food innovation hub. So we are really very serious about our vision. And the initiative that you've mentioned, our cooperation with EDB, the Emirates Development Bank, I like to think about it as one of the tools that we have available. So this is basically one of the tools that we are providing a financing scheme, especially for the companies or for the individuals who want to invest in the agri-food system, whether it's, from the very early production phases all the way to processing, or the way to, supporting the value chain, the supply chain, storage, for example. So we want to support the growth of this system. And if we do not have a specific funding scheme, because unfortunately in our region, the regular banks do not have something specific for the agri-food system. So we had to do something about this. So probably the next step, though, I have to admit this might be a gap, not just in the UAE, this is a global gap actually, the insurance scheme. The insurance scheme for the agri-food investment. So that would be a next step for us. However, this is only one tool for the UAE. So another tool is, for example, the food tech valley. So we have the financing tool, and then we have the a food tech valley, which is another cluster, if we could consider it, another economic cluster where we aim to have the entire value chain in this place, and we have it very close to our ministry actually, where we want to have the R&D side, the MNCs, the local companies, the entrepreneurs. So we want this area to be a food Silicon Valley, basically. We want to see more innovations coming out of this place from the MNCs that will be in this space. So we have a couple of tools that we want people to utilize, not just people from the UAE, but we're also, you'd notice that we are attracting agri-tech from outside the UAE to establish a hub here, because it will not just, benefit us, it will benefit the region, it will benefit the world, especially if you think about our climate. We are, for R&D, we are in the perfect climate. We have a very extreme environment and weather. So it's really the perfect, environment for R&D to prepare the rest of the world even for the impact of climate change. So these are just some of the tools that we should, I think, collectively adapt and continue to develop as well.
Thank you, Ms. Amal. And it's very interesting because we see in some of the initiatives that there is either focus on technology or on finance, and actually both go together. I think there was a question by the participants that we usually think that GCC countries do not have financial issues per se, but they have to focus on other programs. But you'll be surprised, this particular category, like SMEs and startups, there's still not enough programs, even within the GCC. And specifically, if you talk about sustainable agriculture or looking into alternative agriculture techniques, we will have a separate webinar talking about sustained investment in sustainable agriculture. So for our participants, please stay tuned to join us in future. And related to that, I want to go back to Hamad. And of course, Oman Food Investment Holding has also been investing in the agriculture sector, etc., to promote food security. So can you share with us some of these initiatives, and perhaps what are the top priorities of Oman Food and Investment Holding to address food security? And are you looking into, for example, issues of sustainability as well as we see in other countries?
Sure. Prior to answer your question, it will be worthwhile to give you some idea about the food security landscape and governance in Oman. Nitaj, Oman Food Investment Holding Company, is one of the 100% government holding company that owned by Oman Investment Authority. Oman has witnessed a major government restructuring in 2020. And one of the main outcome of that restructuring is restructuring the establishment of Oman Investment Authority. Now, Oman Investment Authority play a major role towards economic diversification. And they do that through a very well organized holding company in each sector. So Nitaj is basically the pillar or the arm of Oman Investment Authority towards the food security. How we do promoting the food security as Nitaj? Nitaj, basically, we have even due to the restructuring of the company or of the country government, we have to restructure also our strategy. So our new vision is basically focusing towards a sustainable and innovative agri-food chain. And we do that by promoting investment in sustainable agri project aiming to achieve food security. So we have to strike a balance between the development mandate of the government towards food security and also towards the commercial feasibility of those projects in order to be sustainable. Now, our strategic priority is basically linked to the government priority. Oman Vision 2040, which has started the execution in 2021, is focusing in a number of pillars. One of the main pillars is attracting investment, FDI, and also pushing for more private sector participation in the country. So investment pillar is one of the key focus of Oman, and it is translated through the different government unit or companies to deliver towards that pillar. Second pillar is more towards the SME development. So today we are heading very heavily towards the contract farming. We have a number of projects where we are trying not only to focus on major SME, but also in the small farmers. We have one of our project currently that's focusing on contract farming is the Al-Muruj Dairy Company in Salalah. Salalah, we have a number of farmers owning more than 200,000 camels, more than double that size in terms of cows. So basically we are procuring the milk from the farmers, processing that milk, sending that milk to the market, and also beyond Oman. We have started to go to UAE, towards KSA as important market for Oman. That equation has to be well balanced, trying to grow together with the farmer, trying also to make that project feasible, and trying also to open market outside Oman for expansion. So the private sector participation is our main one of our main priority as a company. We are also focusing, as I mentioned, into the R&D. And in fact, just a couple of days ago, His Majesty Sultan Haytham has emphasized in his latest speech about the R&D, about the whole government focus, and with a specific focus towards the new technology, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and so on and so forth. That's why we work together with the Ministry of Agriculture, Fishery, and Water Resources to develop a very ambitious strategic program. We have just finished that. Now we have a portfolio of projects. We are working to support the government, to support the ministry, and to support other private sector. The size of that program exceeding 1.3 billion Omani Riyal as a direct investment value, but also it is very well unique in terms of diversification. Number one, it focuses into province development. Most of those projects are well scattered in Oman, trying to create more jobs for the Omanis, trying to build, capitalizing on the competitive advantage of the different regions in Oman when it comes to what type of crops, what types of projects we are focusing. It also focuses into the technology. One of the main pillars of that program, focusing into basically pushing more towards the big scale project by localizing a new technology, bringing an existing technology from outside, which hasn't been implemented in Oman, focusing into the treated water. We call it the new water as a very big source for agri project expansion. Also, one of our main priority, as I mentioned, trying to push more opportunity for SME, create more jobs for the Omanis, as well as trying to strike that balance by making the country food secure. And how we do that, we focus on those crops where still we don't have a good rate of self-sufficiency. And there is basically a direct government target. Any crops, especially basic commodity, where we have self-sufficiency 70% above, we focus into the added value into the downstream project. Those which are below, we try to expand our self-sufficiency target to basically reach beyond the 70% in Oman. So our strategic program trying to strike the balance across a number of subdividing strategic objectives.
Thank you, Mr. Hamad, and very interesting because I think right now the global situation is with the rising conflicts, the challenges of climate change, etc. So there's a lot of focus on effectively strengthening self-sufficiency. So we spoke about the technology aspect, the innovation, the R&D, and then you briefly mentioned the role of the private sector. So we'd like to hear from you and from the experience of Oman. So what policy reforms and incentives has Oman proposed to enable, for example, greater private sector participation and FDI in Oman's agriculture and food sectors?
Okay. When it comes to how we will execute Oman Vision 2040, we have launched a number of national programs. One of those national programs, we call it the investment attraction. We call it Nazdahr. And that's a dedicated team, a dedicated governance with a certain authority and a mandate to try to attract FDI to Oman and try also to push more private sector, local private sector participation. So how does this program, they put a target for each sector. So as a food sector, we have a target to reach in terms of attracting those investments. The program that I have just mentioned, the 1.3 billion, that's the food sector target towards the FDI. Now, this 1.3 we have already exceeded, and this 1.3 is our target for the current development plan, which will be ending in 2025. Today, we are talking about 1.7 billion. We have exceeded our target. Those projects came 100% from the private sector. Some of them internationally, some of them locally. I am not here referring to any development government project like the ports, like the roads. No, this is a direct private sector project. And what kind of policies and reform we have done? We have lowered our land concession and land, rental prices significantly. Today in Oman, you can basically take as much as you want, up to 100 acre of land with a very low price. You are talking about 50 Omani Riyal per acre. And if you exceeded that, if you exceeded 100 hectare, you can pay only 5 Omani Riyal. So what happened in the last 2 years? A number more than 50,000 hectare has been distributed, signed with the private sector. So that's one area. Second area, the ease of doing business. Today in Oman, most of the sector, you don't have to have a local partner. In the food security, only some areas where you need to have a local partner due to the sensitivity of the sector. But also the private, the FDI can own more than 50%. More than 50%. That's one of the incentives we are trying to provide. There are also a number of funds that the government is developing now. One of the ambitious funds is the Future Fund. It's almost 2 billion Omani Riyal fund, which will be basically our response towards one of the main challenge facing the sector, which is the financing. Still, countries and funding institution look towards the food security as a very high risk sector due to the climate change, due to a number of issues that they are thinking it is still not ready. So we are trying as a government to try to respond to any challenges by creating a sustainable solution. The Future Fund, it is well dedicated towards the economic diversification sector, and the food sector is one of them. What we are trying also to do is in our last discussion for the strategic program, we have allocated a special fund towards the SME that will be investing towards the food sector, which is around not less than 10 million Omani Riyal annually will be dedicated for SME investing into that sector. Other area also, our sector is has a lower humanization target, and that's another incentive we are providing for the FDIs. Of course, with those strategic projects, there can be also some exceptions. Today we are providing a rental period up to 25 years. It can reach up to 90 years for some specific projects.
Thanks very much, Mr. Hamad. These are very interesting initiatives, I think, about creating that ecosystem for attracting private sector investments, but also supporting local production. And we've seen also similar initiatives in Qatar, through Qatar Development Bank, and also the Made in Qatar logo. I think if you go to supermarkets here, you would see that for a number of products, and that's actually proved to be very powerful in creating that market for local products. I think, Ms. Amal, you did talk about that ecosystem as well through the Food Tech Valley, the collaboration with Emirates Development Bank, etc. Now, all of that is very supportive when we talk about the ecosystem as well to scale up innovation, R&D, and investment. But how about the policy side, like in terms of policy measures and incentives? Are there any examples that you can share with us that the ministry has implemented to support private sector investment in food processing, production, agri-tech, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. So we truly have been working on multiple facets, as due to the complexity of this sector. So I've mentioned Emirates Development Bank, the Food Tech Valley, and then we have free zones that are more and more focusing on attracting agri-tech company like KZAD in Abu Dhabi, like Javza, where they have specific incentives and specific specifically designed programs and for agri-tech, and for in areas, for example, in areas like Al Ain, which is an oasis, so to further attract agri-tech company. And then you have some of the global initiatives that we are working on, not just for the UAE, but for the for the benefits of everyone. So one example could be the Aim for Climate, Aim for C. Basically, this is the Agriculture Innovation Mission, which is a joint initiative that was launched by the UAE and the US government. So this is basically where we are promoting agricultural technologies, and we have over, I believe over 300 country and organization joining this initiative, with I believe over $30 billion of funding available for technologies and innovation. So our support for private sector from all levels, from the startups all the way to big companies, is honestly endless, whether it's on the local level or what our private sector or free zones are providing, or on the global level, because at the end we do believe that this is a shared issue that we need to tackle. But then we come to other examples of collaborative efforts that we are working on. You've mentioned to me in our last meeting the work that we have done on the food security hub that the Mohammed bin Rashid Global Initiative have signed with the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is huge. So basically, through this collaboration, what we're trying to do is to create a local innovation ecosystem and enhance the transformation of the food system locally and internationally. So when I say local innovation ecosystem, it doesn't mean locally to the UAE. It means locally to all countries. So through this hub, that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to enhance collaboration. We're trying to enhance R&D and the transfer of knowledge from one expertise to another, from one country to another. It's all, of course, to support the implementation of the second SDG. And through this collaboration, we are aiming to make Dubai, specifically the UAE in general, the headquarter for food security innovation. So it would be it's actually going to be the headquarter for the Food Innovation Hub as well. In addition, of course, the Mohammed bin Rashid Global Initiative is on the board of the food system and the steering committee as well of the hub. I am myself actually a member of the World Economic Forum Global Future Council for the future of food security. So you can see that the UAE is very much, when it comes to, promoting innovation and scaling up where our private sector is, we are very much interested to work as a collective effort. We're very much integrated into collaboration, into international cooperation, and that's why we sit on these international global councils, so we can provide the perspective of our region. However, those other initiatives like the Aim for Climate, the agricultural breakthrough as well are very important. Another thing I really need to mention that will be launched during COP28, which will be starting, very soon, less than 2 weeks away. The pressure is on. Her Excellency Mariam Al-Mehri have already announced and have invited all countries to join the UAE Declaration for Food System Transformation. And this declaration basically aims to transfer the food systems through the collective efforts, whether it's through the R&D, whether it's through innovations, finance, but it also emphasizes on the collective work that we need to do. And of course, we're encouraging all countries to join, and sign on this declaration, because we do believe that this will be another push toward climate smart agriculture. You probably all know that while food security have been mentioned in previous COPs, it has only been mentioned. There were never a dedicated day for food security. It was never, a key pillar for food security. And this year, Her Excellency, our minister, is the lead for the food security and the food transformation system. So, we are trying to take this sector to the next level, especially as my colleague have mentioned, after the many challenges that we have faced, the pandemic, the geopolitical situation, which did not only impact, for example, wheat, it impacted, key input material that this area does not usually produce, like fertilizers, for example. Today, we heard the news of sugar prices spiking up again. And while we do process sugar in the UAE and distribute it to the region and globally, still we need to be agile about these challenges. So, which is why we actually work very closely with our private sector, the fully owned private sector or the semi-government private sector as well. So even when it comes to our strategic reserve, for example, have to do a lot with our food security, we do not only depend on the government side. Yes, we do cover a lot of our food security, but we work very closely with our private sector. To invest abroad, to invest locally in the UAE in agri-tech, invest abroad in all kind of commodity, but specifically on strategic commodities. And then we also work with the private sector across the value chain. And there are always incentives for them, especially when it comes to securing the food for the people here in the UAE. So basically, we do depend even for our food security on the food that is available in the market. So we do communicate with that part of the private sector. The logistic part is another huge sector, or a huge part of our sector that a lot of people do not, discuss, unfortunately. And in the UAE, we are luckily, localized, and we have a very centralized location. But the advancement of that sector is also very important, and we also do see a lot of, development in that sector, whether it's in the cold, storage, or other ways to handle, especially fresh food, especially in this region, and the issues of how food cannot be spoiled, and then we have the issue of food loss and waste, of course. Which is why, we are focusing on private sector across, again, the value chain. We're even working with, technology providers for food loss and waste. So it's not just about producing the food, it's also about what happens to the food at the end of the day. Are we really abiding by food or circular economy or circular food system that we are always, lecturing about? So that's why we are focusing and working with the private sector across the value chain.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amal, and definitely I think there are a lot of good lessons from your experience in the UAE, and I'll come back to you because there is a lot of focus, as you clearly said, that when we talk about food security, a lot of the time we focus on the production, but it's actually the whole value chain, because if you don't look at the whole value chain, you're still not achieving food security and self-sufficiency, etc. And if you add to it, some other environmental considerations like waste management, then you're achieving also your sustainable development objectives. But I'll come back to you later on the governance model when it comes to, you have a very unique, I think, governance model for food security. I mentioned earlier that you are the only country pretty much that has a food security ministry. And would love to hear about that and what its role, etc. But before that, I want to go back to Mr. Hamad. I think earlier when you mentioned FDI to support, food security and agriculture, etc., you did mention land acquisition and even in foreign, which is like foreign land acquisition. And typically, because I know that's a major issue here in the GCC, because we don't have enough land to grow all varieties of food items, etc. So can you share with us a little bit how is that working, foreign investment in land acquisition, and how is that supporting maybe Oman's national food security? Perhaps just some examples.
Sure. Oman, we are working now in two initiatives. One is the clustering. Instead of basically fragmenting the land distribution, we are basically building a number of agri-cluster zones in Oman, where we have built with regards to the competitive advantage of each region. For example, we have in Oman, Al-Jabal Al-Akhdar is one of the region enjoy a very good weather, cold weather in fact. So we are experimenting a number of unique crops there, like berries, for instance, strawberries, and pomegranate as well. So that's one area. Second area, in one of the biggest area in Oman, we call it Najd, which is I think the huge area, enjoy a good reserve of water south of Oman. When I said huge, I think it is the more than the size of Bahrain and Qatar putting together. And in that region, we have a number of crops that we are focusing on, like wheat, one of those crops which we have started to produce, trying to cut the cost down, where currently the cost is not competitive towards the import that we receive. Other areas in Oman, like Al-Batana region, which is a very good, areas for producing different crops, but they don't have competitive advantage when it comes to water availability. So in that region, we are mainly focusing into the treated waters, which we have availability, and we are trying to send our treated water pipeline in those areas where we are potentially targeting as agri hubs in that part of Oman. The eastern part of Oman also, there is a big hub we are building. So basically, how we are organizing our land allocation, it is not, we are not working in terms of a reactive towards the wish list of an investor. No, we want we are targeting a specific investor where the objective of the country and of the investor can be met. So if you are coming, for instance, and you said, I want to grow potatoes in Oman, I will be, as a government, dictating the area where it is good for you, where I can send you the basic utilities that you need, electricity, water. So it has been very well organized recently. We have a very well-organized spatial planning strategy, working closely with the Ministry of Housing, working closely with Ministry of Agriculture, and also working, bringing together the different investors, trying to accelerate the time of getting the land. For example, today, if you have a ready feasibility study for a project, the response towards a specific land allocation, it doesn't exceed 1 month. In 1 month, if it is a feasible project, you will get the land.
Thank you, Mr. Hamad. And additional to that, do you also consider land in other countries, or is it just limited to within Oman itself?
Yes, we are studying a number of projects. One of the projects we are studying, and we have started, in fact, but we have started gradually in Australia. We have signed a deal with the Association of Australian Farmers, trying to offtake their product and make it, exclusive to Oman. But that's only the stage 1. Stage 2, we are thinking of owning lands there as well.
Thank you very much. And we've seen, a few countries also, typically those with any availability of land, they would also consider land acquisition in other countries to actually support their, food security, domestic food security. And it's very interesting to maybe see, and Qatar as well has been doing that through Hazard Food. I want to go back to Ms. Amal. And I mentioned earlier that very much interested in your governance model when it comes to food security. And it's really interesting if we want to talk about food security that supports economic diversification. And we know that governance is a very critical area, because this is how you ensure that your resources are efficiently allocated and managed to the right, maybe priority areas or strategic priorities to achieve food security. Can you tell us more about, the governance model in UAE to support food security?
Yes, absolutely. So you've mentioned that we're one of the few countries that have a minister for food security, and this started, I believe, in 2018, when His Highness Sheikh Hamad bin Rashid have announced Her Excellency Mariam al-Mehri as a Minister of State for Food Security. But as you might know, that 2 years ago, Her Excellency came back to the ministry, where the file have been reintegrated into the ministry. So we are the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, but food security is also with us. The governance model that we have is very much considerate of the multi-sectoral, characteristics of this sector of the food security. So it's not just about food, it's about economy, it's about politics, it's about, food safety. So for that, we have established the Emirates Food Security Council, where we have basically all the federal government entities on that council. So that be it our ministry, Ministry of Economy, Then we have, for example, the authorities that have to do with the crisis management on the federal level. Then we have all the municipalities, the local level municipalities are also on that council. So we have all of those on the Emirates, on the highest level of the governance system. And under that, we have, I believe, around 13 specific committees. Within these committees, we are focusing on different pillars of the food security strategy, which was also, of course, the Food Security Strategy 2051. It was released as well by the end of 2018. So this governance body is the one responsible for the implementation. And while they might be from different ministries, different local committees, and then we go where the committees are actually working on the initiatives, on the programs that are in the strategy to be implemented. One example could be the Food Loss and Waste Committee. And of course, food loss and waste is a key pillar in the food security strategy, where we are aiming to have basically decreased by 50% of our food loss and waste by 2030, aligned with the global agenda, of course. And there is, a committee for that. And we have worked slowly all the way to reaching the launch of the Ni'ma initiative. The Ni'ma initiative is basically the national program for food loss and waste in the UAE. And just I think 2 days ago, we have launched the strategy, the strategy for the Ni'ma initiative. And the Ni'ma initiative actually was launched by His Highness, the President, I believe last year. So further emphasizing on the programs under these committees and under the governance of this council. Then we have other, other committees like the Local Production Committee, like the Trade Committee, and each of those committees is led by one key entity. Like when it comes to trade, for example, we have the Ministry of Economy is the lead, but then we have all the supporting entities working together on the different initiative when it's come, for example, diversifying our food sources or, increasing our domestic production. We do also have an R&D committee as well. So all of these committees from the different entities are the one responsible for implementing the strategy. And of course, they then report to the Emirates Food Security Council. So yes, I do believe this is a very unique yet very good governance system because again, we are all working together to serve this, this strategy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amal, and I'll come back to you later with the prospects. I know you mentioned some one initiative during the COP28, and we look forward to looking at the declaration. But before that, I want to take the opportunity of the presence of Professor Jureidini, and he has been extensively actually working with us on research-related projects. And we spoke about, when we talk about food security and economic diversification, a lot of research is needed. We spoke about R&D. It's not only in the technology or the financing side, but also when it comes to addressing some specific social, environmental issues. We spoke about collaborations and partnerships, and I think research projects is a good initiative or a platform to actually bring in best practices and engage with other global partners. So I would like to engage Professor Ray very briefly to share with us actually from his perspective, what is the role of research and development in promoting food security in line with countries' economic diversification strategies?
Yes, thank you, Dalal. I think, just very grateful for the speakers who I'm just learning a great deal about Oman and UAE. But one of the things that was mentioned is something that we are engaged in, which is to look at a socio-economic factors in regard to food security. And we are focusing of course, we are conducting background research on food production and food security issues. And we have data on that I'm hoping we can present at another webinar. Here we are looking at the migrant labor workforce. In this region, most of the Gulf states have very high proportion of their population as foreigners, foreign workers who come to these lands to work. And so we are looking into the peculiarities of the migrant labor force, the conditions of that labor force, and as the end users of food, they are the recipients. And so we're looking at the various factors that are involved, and we will be doing a survey of migrant workers in relation to food security. So that's hopefully going to be a very interesting set of data that we can provide for further discussion later on. One of the issues that we also looked at is this is why Dr. Dalal keeps asking the question about foreign direct investments. One of the questions that we raised in relation to the foreign direct investments was the extent to which these are long-term and sustainable investments. For example, I think it's too early because these food security strategies are relatively recent historically, and I think it's a bit too early to tell how it's going to pan out. So the issue of investing like shareholdings in companies in other countries, but also purchasing property, agricultural property. For example, Qatar at one point purchased sheep farm, more than one sheep farm in Australia also. But I don't know if you know, but Australia's real estate is an extremely good investment over the last decade. And so what happened was that they sold the farm because they were able to realize quite a tremendous profit. So the extent to which these investments are specifically to hedge against crises in the home country, and the extent to which the investment is set for the long term, or whether there's going to be ways in which that might not happen because of expediency. So that's an interesting question that others may be able to address. So I think it remains to be seen to what extent these are investments for bringing food in that cannot be provided for in the home country. What was mentioned was that our project is funded by the Ministry of Municipality in Qatar and the Qatar National Research Fund. Well, the call for research is in its fourth year now, and the fourth call has been issued. And let me just read to you what the priority areas are for funding research. The first is the assessment and monitoring of local and international food supply chains. The second is the environmental impacts of food production in Qatar. And of course, food production in Qatar is quite a story. I mean, we've been to a number of countries now talking about it. What happened when the blockade was issued against Qatar, and also what happened with the onset of the COVID pandemic, and how the government and the private sector managed to overcome the challenges that were brought about by these events. I won't go into that. We can do that another time because it's a most interesting comparative study. The third priority area is the innovative practices in controlled environment agriculture. And this is something that we've looked into. There's all these innovation has been mentioned by Ms. Amal, that's going on everywhere, basically, looking for innovation. The fourth is policy and community initiatives for localized and sustainable food production. And this is something that has been mentioned, SMEs and local, that we have a number of examples here in Qatar of just, you know, family couple developing innovative production at a small scale, but nonetheless enough for marketing. And the fifth is sustainable fisheries and agriculture. And sixth is technologies and practices to develop healthy farm animals. And that's an important area because meat-eating countries require that to be a sustainable source of meat, whether it's chickens or beef or fish and so on. So these areas are going to be funded by the joint efforts of the Ministry of Municipality and the Qatar National Research Fund. And it's going to cover technical, but also we are particularly involved in the socio-economic, to look at the details of end users of the food production.
Thank you very much, Professor Ray. I think this is very insightful. I think the whole idea is that food security is a multidimensional, issue. And if we talk about it specifically, trying to also strike that balance between food security, economic diversification, and then environmental impact and climate change mitigation, it is important to consider all of these socioeconomic factors through incentives, through technical innovation, through R&D, and of course, through providing the ecosystem to attract private investment as well. I think we're almost done. I think that the session has been very interesting so far, and I would like to give the floor to both panelists, to Ms. Amal and Mr. Hamad, very briefly, maybe for 2-3 minutes, just to share their final maybe insights. What do you think is the key priorities moving forward? I think you mentioned earlier, Ms. Amal, COP28. So what are some of the key challenges? We can discuss a lot of them, but if we were to prioritize, and also based on your rich experience from both countries, what do you think efforts should be redirected towards as a priority in the next months? I'll start with Ms. Amal.
Thank you, Dr. Dalal, and thank you, Ray, for your valuable contribution. Just to come back to what you have mentioned very fast on socioeconomic perspective, I think it is also important for an overview understanding, because I do see that there is a lack of understanding of what do we mean when it comes to, what do we mean by food security? What do we mean by strategic food items? And some times it is meant, but we have 24, for example, strategic food items. Apple is one of them. But if, God forbid, we have a crisis, it's not really a strategic food item, right? If we have a crisis, it's the highest caloric, intake food items, and it goes, the same way with the workers as well. For us, we worry about how many calories we take, so we have to worry about the nutritional value. That's really our food security. But when it comes to the workers, maybe they are covering the nutritional value, but they need more calories because of the way their lifestyle, their work style. So this is very important research that you are conducting, and especially for the understanding of what is food security for the different workforce that we have. When it comes to the Emirates Declaration that I'm very proud that we will be announcing, we'll be launching in COP28, where, as I have mentioned, this is one of the first times that we or globally give this much attention during COP, especially to food. Basically, the aim here is for us to commit to expediting the integration of the agriculture and the food system into our climate action, because unfortunately, it seems that these are two separate discussions, two separate reporting all the time. So we want to really mainstream climate change and our policy agenda and actions that have to do with the agricultural and food. And in addition to that, in this declaration, we are really giving a lot of attention on vulnerable communities. We want to reduce the vulnerability of the smallholder farmers, the smallholder or the small producers. We want to strengthen, the water, food, energy nexus. We want the smallholder, food producer, let's call them, have more ability to better utilize this nexus. We want to support, other vulnerable people like the youth, the women. We want to give them a stronger voice in this sector specifically. And then, of course, to maximize the climate and the environmental benefit, and the feasibility of economic, environmental feasibility of continuously evolving food sector, with, of course, minimizing the environmental impact and the climate impacts. So again, this is more and more about, as my colleague have mentioned, finding, that balance between, securing our food, but then not ruining our environment, reducing our, whether it's carbon footprints or any other harmful footprint that we have through, securing our food. But really, I would like to encourage all my colleagues here to, participate at COP28, to come and visit, and check out all the events that will be there. Look at the declaration and how can we, better contribute to it, because in the UAE we're really focusing, and this is what I hear all the time from the leadership. It's it's past the time of just talking. We are, now we're walking the talk, and this is literally what we have been saying to all of our, colleagues from the different countries. And that's why you'll see a lot of initiatives, programs that we are doing in collaboration with many, many countries. And thank you very much, Dr. Dalal, and my esteemed colleagues in this panel.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amal, for your valuable thoughts, and we wish you best of luck for the upcoming COP28. I think there are a lot of challenges to address, so we're looking forward to see some of the good developments, hopefully. Mr. Hamad, very briefly, also concluding remarks.
Yes, I think there was one important comment by one of the speakers. They said the strategy for food security, historically speaking, is quite new, and he's definitely right. I think we need to continue our dialogue, taking advantage of such platform. Today, I think it is one of the important platforms. We need to advocate ourselves, promote food security, educate people about it, and as Ms. Amal mentioned very well, it is not. It is the definition of, should be a flexibility when dealing with the definition of the food security. One of the areas need to be focused is the nutrition, is our lifestyle. If we have a scarcity when it comes to production of wheat, and we have an issue with that, also maybe one of the focus should be our lifestyle, shifting away from the carbs, So I think the challenges facing the food security will continue, but also the measure to respond to them should also continue. Climate change is inevitable. We have seen in our region, we have frequent, storms happening recently. Population is growing. We have an issue when it comes to the technological advance, but also we have now new issues. We are promoting a diversification in new sectors, but in the same time, we have global agenda to attend to when it comes to zero carbon, when it comes to circular economy. And I think some of those agenda has been really pushed by country which has been advanced in those sectors a long time ago. So as a country and as a region, we don't have a competitive advantage. We need to continue diversification, but also we need to strike that balance towards the global agenda, but also making sure we are really diversifying our economy and also engaging everybody. The entire, I can see huge potential in this sector for growing investment, for growing SMEs, for bringing together the rural farmers to contribute. And I think such a platform and the COP28 that UAE is organizing is one of the most important gathering that we need to collaborate. I think we need to be more collaborating in the future. Beyond the collaboration between the state and the private sector, I think beyond the countries, GCC, I think we need to see more collaboration building on the competitive advantage across our countries. That could help as well. And I think we have said enough about our priorities, our focus, and I will just try to close my statement by thanking you, Dr. Dalal, thanking the organizer, thanks my colleague speakers for the education that we have been really receiving from them today. And I wish such platforms, such gathering can continue in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamad, for your valuable inputs. I think a lot of great ideas and developments have been discussed in today's webinar. Economic diversification is a strategic priority for GCC countries, and also food security. And I think aligning both would require incentives to attract private sector investment, would require innovation in technology, in alternative agriculture methods, in securing actually FDI and investments to support some of the usually marginalized segments like SMEs. It requires also a lot of collaboration and putting in place the right and the supportive and conducive ecosystem to scale up innovation to support food security in a sustainable way. I'm very grateful to the panelists, Ms. Amal Hassan Al-Ahmadi and Mr. Hamad Al-Rushaidi, for their valuable inputs and for sharing their respective experiences from UAE and from Oman. This is the first webinar, as I mentioned, in our food security webinar series on food security and sustainable development, which is a collaboration between the Islamic Organization of Food Security and Hamad Bin Khalifa University. Please stay tuned for future webinars. We plan to cover more topics in very detailed way. Among the topics that we'll be covering would include food security and responsible agriculture investment, rethinking food systems through circular economy, inclusive food security, designing food security policies, food security governance, food security, transport, global agri-value chains, and other topics. So we hope that this platform, as Mr. Hamad rightly said, will be an opportunity for sharing global best practices and also promoting knowledge sharing and capacity building to scale up actually innovation for food security and sustainable development. Thank you everyone for joining this webinar, and we wish you all the best. Thank you everyone. And of course, thank you IOFS for the great support that you have been providing so far for making this initiative happen. Thank you.